Mark Rober's video, "Can You Fool a Self-Driving Car?" was fun to watch, but was it really a fair test? He pitted Tesla's camera-based system against a Luminar car, which is Lidar equipped, but here's the problem. He didn't follow the scientific method. The test wasn't controlled, the conditions weren't the same, and the results? Well, let's just say they might not mean what you think. Let's break it down. One of the biggest issues in Mark Rober's test was that he drove the Tesla himself, while a Luminar staff member drove the Lidar-equipped car. At first glance, that might not seem like a big deal, but it actually introduces some serious problems that could skew the results. Tesla's Autopilot systems have specific requirements for activation and operation. If the driver doesn't engage the system correctly, it won't perform as intended. In Mark's case, we don't know if he followed Tesla's best practices or just turned it on and went for it. Meanwhile, the Luminar car was operated by a trained professional, someone who likely knew exactly how to get the best performance out of the system. This already creates an unfair comparison because one vehicle is being tested by an expert in its technology, while the other is being tested by someone who just went for it. Tesla recommends giving its autopilot system at least 5 seconds after activation to analyze the environment before making critical decisions. However, in the test, Mark doesn't appear to give the Tesla a consistent amount of time to initialize before starting each scenario. If the system doesn't have enough time to process its surroundings, it will lead to worse performance because it wasn't given a fair chance. On the other hand, the Luminar car was driven by someone who likely made sure it was fully ready before each test. If one system gets all the time it needs while the other is rushed, the comparison is inherently flawed. A proper scientific test controls for these variables to ensure a fair comparison. If one system is given an optimal setup and the other is not, the results aren't truly about which technology is better. It's about which one was given a better chance to succeed. The first 2 tests in Mark Rober's video were fairly straightforward. However, the next 3, the fog test, the rain test, and the bright light test, raised some serious concerns. For both the fog and rain tests, it would have been valuable to measure the exact level of fog or rain at which Tesla's vision system stopped being able to see the dummy. Instead of just showing that Lidar worked better in these conditions, a proper test should have determined the specific threshold where Tesla's system started to fail. This would provide more meaningful insights into the real-world limitations of vision-based driving. One major issue with the rain test is that we don't actually know why the Luminar-equipped vehicle stopped. Was it detecting the dummy, or did it mistake the heavy rain itself as an obstacle? Lidar works by sending out laser pulses and measuring how they reflect back, but in heavy rain, water droplets can scatter these pulses, potentially confusing the system. Without a proper control test, there's no way to determine whether the car stopped because it detected the dummy or simply because the rain created too much interference. To get a clear answer, there should have been 2 separate tests. The first test is a control test with heavy rain but no dummy. This would show whether the Luminar system falsely identified rain as an obstacle. The second test with both rain and the dummy. This would confirm if the vehicle could still detect and stop for a pedestrian despite the rain. Since these tests weren't done, we can't say for certain if Luminar performed better because of its pedestrian detection, or if it just struggled with the rain in a way that coincidentally led to a stop. One of the biggest biases in Mark Rober's experiment is that he only focused on tricking Tesla's vision-based system. He never attempted to fool the Luminar-equipped Lidar car. A perfect example of this is the fake wall with a painted road, where he tested whether Tesla would mistake the flat image for an actual road and try to drive through it. This is a fair test for a vision-based system since cameras rely on interpreting visual data. However, Mark never applied the same effort to finding ways to exploit weaknesses in Lidar. Lidar doesn't use images. It maps the environment by bouncing laser pulses off objects. But that doesn't mean it's foolproof. A well-balanced experiment should have also tested Lidar's own vulnerabilities. One interesting way to do this would be to use mirrors. Since Lidar works by detecting reflected laser signals, strategically placed mirrors could redirect or block the laser pulses, making objects appear where they aren't, or hiding objects that are actually there. In fact, there's a YouTube video demonstrating this concept, where mirrors were used to extend the Lidar vision of a small robot, effectively tricking it into seeing further than it actually could. Another potential vulnerability in the Luminar Lidar system is the possibility of using a glass wall to trick it. Lidar works by emitting laser pulses and measuring the reflections, but glass is transparent to most Lidar wavelengths. If a glass wall were placed in the path of the vehicle, the Lidar system might not detect it at all, or it could mistake the transparent surface for clear space. This is a known issue for Lidar, as it can have difficulty detecting transparent objects like glass, water, or even some reflective surfaces. If Mark had tested using a glass wall in front of the Luminar vehicle, he could have discovered a weakness where the Lidar system fails to detect the obstruction. This is another missed opportunity for a more fair and comprehensive test between the 2 systems. If Mark had used either approach, he might have found ways to fool Luminar's system, just like he did with Tesla's. By only trying to exploit Tesla's vision-based system without testing weaknesses in Luminar's Lidar, the experiment was inherently one-sided rather than a fair evaluation of both technologies. In Mark Rober's experiment, he used a VR headset to view the point cloud generated by the Lidar system while driving, providing a clear look at how the Lidar was perceiving the environment. This was a cool demonstration of Lidar's spatial awareness and range. However, there's an important detail missing. He never did the same with Tesla's camera stream. So, after all this, what can we take away from Mark Rober's experiment? While it was entertaining and certainly sparked some interesting ideas, the test wasn't as fair or scientifically sound as it could have been. If you've learned anything from this, it's this. Always question the results, dig a little deeper, and never just take someone's word for it, even if it's Mark Rober. If you found this analysis helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. And always remember, think for yourself and never trust anything without questioning it. Stay curious.